Our adventure began at JIA with a flight to Atlanta. No surprise there. We then boarded a plane for Amsterdam. Unfortunately, the flight was delayed just long enough to make us miss our connection to Istanbul.
Well, you missed that one, so you have to go on the Swiss air flight now?
Sounds simple enough. Next stop, Switzerland. Zurich is quite beautiful, but freezing this time of year.
You know, Zurich wasn't on the itinerary. Nobody told me to dress for snow.
Soon we're on our way to Istanbul, Turkey. Our luggage, however, was not. Our 3-hour layover gave it just enough time to catch up with us. And after 24 hours of flying, we arrive at our final destination, Antalya.
We're here!
Our exhaustion turned to exhilaration when we finally saw the Saratoga, the Super Sarah that would be our floating home away from home for the next 5 days. I could never have imagined what was in store for us. We took so many pictures, talked to so many people, and each night I tried to collect my thoughts in my Saratoga Diary. Tonight, it is my pleasure to share it with you. Hello, I'm Deborah Gianolis. My 5 days at sea were unlike any other 5 days in my life. It was my privilege to watch our Navy men at work, to share a holiday away from home, and to get to know as friends men who may soon go to war. I have so much to tell you, so much to show you about life at sea. The Saratoga crew is dedicated, proud of their Navy and their country. They want to be there. They enjoy it. The 6,000 men who have spent the past 5 months on the Saratoga don't know when they'll be home again, and they don't dwell on it. They live life one day at a time. The guys who make those high-powered planes take off and land on a saucer in a rolling sea are the heroes we hear about, the Top Guns, the men in the movies. But there are a slew of men behind the scenes who bring the high drama to the carrier deck.
I'm amazed every time a ship gets underway. You think about the thousands and thousands of people that have to flip the switches and turn the dials and adjust the valves to make this thing move. It's an amazing operation to me. I sometimes just step back and marvel at how many people have to do the right thing at the right time to make it happen.
The mission of an aircraft carrier is launching and landing planes. It is made possible by a complicated choreography. In flight deck control, the air show is played out on what looks like a game board. The colors of the pins show what color shirts are working on the planes. White shirts are safety. Red shirts handle the weapons. Purple shirts, the grapes, take care of fuel.
All the birds are out sitting on deck. They're getting their turns. We're fueling the stations now, getting them all flushed, getting them ready to fuel, and all the purple nuts are the aircraft that we're going to be fueling.
The green shirts are the catapult crew. They are led by Lieutenant Commander Ron Coleman.
This is the hardest working rate that I've seen in my 15 years.
And they are very young guys. The average age of Ron's team and of the entire carrier crew is about 20.
The best part of it is they rely on you to take care of them. And the most satisfying part is I can do that, and the reward is we rely on each other and the job gets done.
The danger of that job is part of what drives them. The carrier deck can be deadly. Even some pilots told me they don't know why these guys do it. How many times a day do you run out from under that plane just before it shoots?
Probably about 30 times a day.
Do you enjoy it?
It's a thrill.
My couple of hours on the carrier deck between the catapults were nothing short of exhilarating. The incredible noise, the thundering rumble of a jet going from 0 to 200 in 90 seconds. It rattles your bones, and the blast of the jet engines all but blow you over. The split-second precision is mind-boggling. And they are landing during the day now. They're going to land about every 45 seconds.
That's correct.
But at night, you space it out a bit more.
Once a minute if we can do it.
The intensity increases dramatically when the daylight disappears. During night air operations, the added stress can be felt in the silence. The pilots can no longer see the deck. They depend on what they call the meatball, a yellow light which maintains a level center line on a landing surface that is moving. Video cameras placed in the carrier deck itself and at strategic places above it record all flights and can help guide pilots down. Each squadron has a pilot watching and grading the night landings or traps. Air Ops can also talk a pilot down when he's low on fuel or having instrument problems.
It's a ballet. It really looks like one when you watch it and when it works. And it works well.
A ballet in a much larger production, the war games of a carrier battle group. Dave, this looks like video games to the untrained eye. What actually happens in this room?
Well, basically, at the Tactical Action Officer Station here in the Combat Direction Center, we take all the information from the ship's sensors and from other ship sensors and put it into one big plot so that the Admiral can have the big overall picture about what goes on in the whole entire battle group.
The whole battle group supports the air wing of the Saratoga. The 9 squadrons assigned to the carrier and all of their support teams are under the direction of Captain Dean Hendrickson.
This is an outstanding air department. It's an outstanding flight deck operation. I think Saratoga is fully ready for anything that we would have to do in the way of a weapons department loadouts, anything at all. The engineering plant, the folks here on this ship are ready to provide us everything that we would need.
Captain Hendrickson and the skipper of the ship, Joe Mobley, work hand in hand in preparing their men for war. They are both Vietnam veterans, and their brand of leadership is almost fatherly.
I've got a lot of good department heads, a lot of good chiefs, division officers. Those are the people that really determine the attitude and the morale of the crew. We try to emphasize that. We all know that we can't do anything without the 18, 19-year-old kid out there doing his job well, and if we don't take care of him, he's not going to perform as well. We all understand that, and you have to rely upon your deck plate leadership to be good leaders and to motivate the young guys, and that's where the strength of the ship is.
Leadership is what makes the Navy work, especially in the intense environment at sea. Change of command ceremonies are a Navy custom, a tradition which mandates the public reading of official orders. There are no dress whites at sea. As soon as the ceremony is over, it is back to work.
Report to Commanding Officer, Helicopter Index, Submarine Squadron 3. It says relief. Report to immediate superior in command, JM Florida, Vice Admiral, U.S. Navy.
Thomas Darcy is being relieved by Joseph Avaduti as commander of Helicopter Anti-Submarine Squadron 3, based at NAS Jax.
This is without a doubt the finest HS squadron that I have ever sailed with. I have never seen a squadron that day in and day out is so professional in everything you do.
In front of his superiors and his colleagues, Avaduti had a long-distance message.
I'd like to thank one special person. I'd like to recognize my wife, Carol, and thank her for all the support she provided throughout the years.
After the ceremony, Avaduti told me this was the most important milestone in his military career, and the only one his wife, Carol, wasn't there to share.
The toughest job in the Navy is being a Navy wife. Coming from Jacksonville, I'm sure you've heard that before.
You bet.
That's true.
I didn't think about getting home. That's all I really can say. Because I miss the kids dearly, and my wife too.
It takes a special person, a special family to handle the separations. Because every time you come back, it's like being your family all over again.
Well, I've been married for 18 years, and my wife has had to put up with a lot of separation. It's kind of something that you grow into, like being married for 18 years. You know, if it's going to be, it's going to be because you worked at it, not just because one person works at it, but everybody works at it.
Whatever it takes to fill her time is how she deals with crews. The hardest part right now is just not knowing when we're going to come home.
So our families are going through something that many of them have been through before. Just a little bit more potential for hostilities.
The sea may separate Saratoga crewman Brian Fox and his wife Patty, but they have managed to make it with some special messages. 2 nights before I left for my trip aboard the aircraft carrier, there was a surprise birthday party for Patty here at home, orchestrated by her husband so far away. On December 13th, we did a story about the party. Brian had written local singer Rick Steele. He asked Steele to get his wife together with other Saratoga wives to wish her a happy birthday. Patricia was turning 22, and it was her first birthday apart from Brian during the 5 years they've been married. They had 3 children, and the baby, Matthew, was just 10 days old when her husband shipped out. Brian asked his friend to read a poem he wrote just for Patty.
I want to present to you the original letter that he wrote me. and I'd like for you to come up here.
While on the Saratoga, I looked up that romantic husband and brought the tape for him to watch.
The Navy has taken me so far away, and I want you to know that I'll never stray. The golden band on my finger is more important to me than any pleasure I could find between here and Italy. For though we're so very far apart, you and the kids are near and dear to my heart. I know I have a job to do. Leaving you behind just doesn't seem right. I wish this world wasn't crazy and no one had to fight. I thank God above each night as I pray for bringing you into my life and allowing you to stay. I know no other woman I'd rather be with. There are many lovely women, but I know I found the best. I'm proud of you, honey. You got it tougher than me. You have a family to raise while I just sit here at sea. To sum it all up, I love you more than I could ever say in songs and poems or in any other way. Brian Fox.
Brian had a message to send back to his wife and 3 little boys.
I love you, miss you, and I'll be home in early February. Take care of the kids. I'll see you soon.
I love you, I miss you, and thank you so much for this party. I only wish you could be here for it.
Hey, Jess, we love you, and we just got one message for you. First of all, we're praying for you, and the message is that we're looking for that job, and we're thinking big. Vote for Jesse for president!
Another long-distance reunion we helped make possible was one between Jesse Boyette and his family in Clay County. You might remember this scene. The family was one of so many taking advantage of Channel 4's traditional taping of holiday messages that we call Hi Daddy. We were touched by the family's togetherness and good humor. They certainly had a memorable message. He seemed touched by their show of affection. His squadron buddies thought it was a riot, and Jesse was a bit embarrassed by the attention, but wanted to send a message back home.
Hi, babe. I just want to say hello, Merry Christmas, that I love you, and tell Josh I'll be home soon to play ball with him. And thanks for the video. It was real funny. Bye-bye.
While the men may get lonely at sea, they are certainly not alone. The camaraderie of this group of avionics maintenance men from Cecil Field's VS-30 is typical. You must make a lot of friends. I mean, the guys that you work with must become pretty important to you.
We hate them.
Except for him?
You have no choice. This is your family.
So the cruise is going as well as can be expected? I mean...
Sure. It's pretty good.
How do families, deal with the separation? I mean,
well, I've got 3 boys, and in fact, I just got a tape today. I was just watching it, and every 10 seconds, I have 3 boys, and they're tearing up the house. And just wait, Bill. When you get back, this is all going to be yours. I'm going to the mall. Well, I'm like, that's fine. Just stay happy. Whatever it takes, that's fine. Because it's very hard.
Is it fair to ask the question, who are deployments harder on, the families back home? Or
Families back home.
Unanimous.
With our lives, all we have to take care of is ourselves. We're fed, the clothes get done, everything is very, well, most of the time, very systematic. Where back home, the car breaks, the pipes leak, or the roof leaks, or whatever. There's a lot more variables.
What is the adjustment period like when you get home and your wife's been used to handling everything by herself and raising the kids by herself?
To say honestly, I'm scared, because I'm used to taking charge when I get home. So I have to
pull in the reins a little bit.
Yeah.
Sleep a lot.
They become very independent while you're gone.
Is that good, though? I mean, it's the only way they're going to make it.
It's good to know that she can do it.
Yeah. And it helps back home to know the men are in good spirits.
You got to have a sense of humor around here. And I think that's what makes it, easier for everybody. Because when something does stressful come out, it just brings out the comedy more.
It's laugh or cry, right?
Basically, it really is.
Guys, we got a camera here. If you want to all get together and maybe send a message back to Jacksonville.
This is the guy
trying to work.
This is the guy.
You came to the wrong place.
This is Dizzy, what he's talking about.
Give me my airplane.
Welcome, Deb, to VFA 83. Can you tell these guys know how to have a good time? It's apparently a way of life when you are living on the edge. You work hard and you play hard. And you never miss an opportunity to give a buddy a ribbing. Take call signs, the pilot's nicknames. Here's an explanation from Bano.
Our executive officer, Maggot, I don't know. That's probably another deep and sordid story. I'm not going to get into that either. Ammo, Mert, Thanos, Spike, those usually come by virtue of your name.
A good pilot is called a hot stick, and all the aviators on board like to tease the so-called surface guys. They play a game of one-upsmanship with their shoes. There's a lot of joking between, the shoes. I see
shoes.
brown shoes and black shoes.
Airedales and shoes. Basically, the small boys of the surface Navy, black shoes. That's what they wore all along. Sometime back in naval aviation history, when it came about, we started wearing brown shoes. And that was the one way that you could look at a uniform and tell someone who was an aviator from a non-aviator. So it sort of stuck with us even during a period of time when we were not allowed to wear brown shoes. They were still called brown shoes and black shoes, Airedales and surface guys. And it's just sort of a way to distinguish them, and we like our brown shoes.
Well, and don't the Airedales feel just maybe a little bit superior to the surface boys?
Maybe a little bit.
After a few days with these flyers, I began to feel like I was crashing a frat party.
It's the ultimate male bonding. It's the ultimate male bonding.
And flying airplanes is the ultimate rush. For the guys in the air, 3 port calls in 5 months isn't too bad because it means they are in their birds.
Whenever we're working hard and flying and not bored, as I said, then we're doing well. We do this because we enjoy the gratification and the reward that we get from it. Plus, it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun to fly airplanes.
These men prove the greatest rewards in life must come with the greatest risk. Many have lost friends to accidents. The carrier deck does not tolerate mistakes.
It's the first cruise I've been on where, at this point in the cruise, we still have all of our airplanes and all of our aviators.
The Sarah was especially proud of its safety record this cruise. The crew had successfully launched more than 7,700 planes when I was there. No men had been hurt. Then a twist of fate would claim more lives than any other accident so far in Operation Desert Shield. 21 off-duty sailors drowned in a capsized ferry boat.
Last night, tragedy struck. Saratoga crewmen returning to the carrier from Liberty in Haifa, Israel, were involved in a horrible accident. It is the deadliest involving U.S. servicemen in Operation Desert Shield.
He had turned his back, the ferry was here, he turned around again, the ferry was gone.
For whatever reason, tragedy has struck us like an earthquake or a lightning bolt.
The unanticipated tragedy on a boat in Haifa Harbor has refocused us this Christmas. The loss is immense.
Delwyn Delgado.
Michael L. Bellevue, AIMD-CLP.
They have honored their families. They have witnessed their fidelity to our nation. They have presented themselves before your grace in pursuit of peace. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the sons of God. Amen.
The Saratoga is a city that never sleeps. Technically, everyone on board is an airman or a seaman. But for some 6,000 men to spend months at a time there, airmen and seamen have to be janitors, cooks, clerks, dry cleaners. Just about any job people do in civilian life, somebody has to do on the ship. Nobody on the Saratoga would be doing anything or going anywhere without the men who work the boiler room. The Sarah is steam-powered. Here on the 7th deck below sea level, the temperature often tops 100 degrees, but the men tell me they like their work.
pretty much the heart of the ship. The ship can't go unless we're steaming down there. So we keep it going.
Engineering covers a lot of territory on the Sarah. The department is responsible for propulsion, for turning seawater into fresh water, 240,000 gallons a day, for the electricity which drives the war machines upstairs. Engineering keeps the phones working too. With so few pleasures in life available at sea, chow is a priority. Is it meat stew?
This is beef sukiyaki.
The men who work in the ship's numerous kitchens prepare as many as 24,000 meals a day, 4 meals a day for some 6,000 sailors. The laundry goes round the clock, 680 bags a day.
Do root canals and fillings in these operatories.
The tooth fairy, that's navalese for dentist, is available on the Sarah. In fact, the dentist here sees sailors from throughout the battle group. The same is true for the ship's hospital. Any sailor sick or injured in the battle group will be treated on the Sarah. The carrier has a doc in the box too. Sick call handles routine sprains and runny noses.
And we're not nearly the biggest department of the ship. What I have is some very talented people.
The commanding officer of Aircraft Intermediate Maintenance, AIMD, couldn't say enough about how hard his guys work and how critical their work is. They do everything from repair 7 different jet engines to change tires. For the F-14s and F-18s, that means new tires every 35 to 45 landings. Couldn't keep flying those planes if you guys weren't here to
No, they
repairing their tires.
They wouldn't have anything to land on if it wasn't for the tire shop.
All of the maintenance shops are amazingly clean, evidence of the terrific pride these men have in their work. The men are primarily mechanics, but some of their work is so technical, their boss says they could be rocket scientists. You'd probably make more money in civilian life. Why do you stay in the Navy?
Because to further my training, I keep getting more and more training as I go along. And Navy's probably taught me 2 or 3 careers now, and maybe before the time's over, I might learn another career. Plus, you know, the serving your country.
The tin benders, as they call themselves, manufacture parts and fittings the Sarah's machinery needs to keep running. It's easy to lose track of days and nights in a place without windows, but weather is critical for sailing and flying.
We have a crew of 15.
And you staff around the clock?
Yes, we work 24 hours around the clock, 24 hours in port.
The Saratoga is a heavily armed warship. The weapons are handled by the ordnance team. Although there is an incredible amount of explosive power on board, the team also has an incredible safety record. Only one of their men has been hurt in the last 26 years. The intensity of the work has to be balanced by a bit of recreation. For you mall walkers, yes, the Sarah has a mall, or should we say an oversized closet full of t-shirts, hats, patches, and staples like toothpaste and film. Every good city has a little recreation. Basketball in the hangar bay, daily workouts there too. Stationary bikes wherever they will fit, even video games on the mess deck. All of these services support the mission of the Sarah, launching and landing aircraft safely. Without the basics, food, sanitation, clothes, recreation, the Super Sarah could not sail, let alone serve as one of the nation's foremost warships. It is teamwork to the nth degree.
Everyone in the chain has to depend on the next link.
So good. We were on board the week before Christmas, and the men came to this chapel for spiritual support.
Direct our thoughts, unstop our ears, open up our hearts and our minds that we may receive the truth from your word.
With the threat of war getting closer, the men come together to participate in prayerful discussion.
Do your best to do what? Present yourself to God as one approved. As one approved. God is so good.
Pastor Henry Nixon led the men in song. On board the Saratoga, there are daily church services, Catholic masses, and prayer meetings. The traditional Hanukkah songs during this holiday called the Festival of Lights, which lasts for 8 nights. The Jewish sailors aboard the Sarah observed it by lighting candles on a holder called the menorah. It's a joyous time of gift-giving, playing games, and eating traditional foods.
We had a super Hanukkah party here on the first night. We had about 23 people up in the forecastle, not the forecastle, up in the forward training hall. We served latkes. We had homemade potato latkes.
Oh my gosh!
Oh yes.
I was invited to participate in the service on what was the 7th night of the holiday. The men observed the festival with prayers in both Hebrew and English.
Praise God, you, Lord our God, King of the universe, who accomplished miracles for our ancestors in ancient days and in our time.
After the service, the men ate some of the food they have received from their friends in Jacksonville.
We've had cookies from all over America, from Jacksonville congregations and from people all over who've been sending things. We're really grateful for them, so let's enjoy. We have some nice butter cookies.
Besides leading the service aboard the Saratoga, Rabbi Maurice Capro travels by helicopter to nearby ships to bring Hanukkah care packages to other Jewish sailors. Worship services at sea help sailors get through a lonely holiday, but this holiday, there is also the threat of war. The sign aboard the USS Philippine Sea seems to say it all. 7 days till Santa, Saddam has less than a month. During our journey on the Saratoga, we had the opportunity to fly over for a visit with the Mayport-based Philippine Sea. The Philippine Sea was anxious to tell us their story. The Aegis cruiser is known for its maneuverability. It can go to full power or come to a complete stop in a mere 90 seconds. During its most recent tour with the Sarah in the Red Sea, it boarded more foreign ships than any other Navy vessel, 17 in all, mostly merchant ships, an unusual role for the Navy.
First boarding took place by 2 o'clock in the morning. A merchant ship with a 50-foot ladder and the boarding party having to climb up aboard, whether you were in the boat and the boarding party on board the ship or flying to Hilo. I think everybody was pretty tense that night.
The Philippine Sea war dogs, like the Sarah sailors, are a proud bunch. Their executive officer, Jim Sanford, told us this is the best crew he has been with in the Navy. So you've got quite an impressive ship here. The Central Control Station looks as state-of-the-art as it is. The Phil Sea is a brand new ship, and its newness is a striking contrast to the Sarah. We couldn't help but notice how much fresher the living areas of the ship are. The lighting is much brighter. It's a pleasant environment to live and work in. Like the carrier, the cruiser has been getting lots of mail from home. The ship's officers like to brag about their 2 helos on board, too. They say Detachment 7 from HSL 46 at Mayport has been flying more than any other helicopters in the battle group. Of all the ships in the Saratoga battle group, the one whose primary role is air defense is the USS Philippine Sea. The Sarah pilots tell me they feel a lot more secure when the Aegis cruiser is close by. The captain of this ship can be found in the Combat Decision Center, the brains of the battle group, where the ship's high-tech radar and extensive computerized weapon system is up and running at all times. The Philippine Sea has voice communication with the Saratoga on at least 10 different channels, and once they are back together in the Red Sea, the cruiser will be a shadow and a shield for the carrier.
That's what we train for our entire careers. We just prepare for this. Whatever comes, you know, we prepare for whatever the mission is. Most of the time we come out and just conduct training exercises in anticipation of some future time, but now it seems it's like a little more imminent possibility of actually having some combat operations.
I'd be remiss if I didn't say we were all apprehensive about it. Of course, it's the man in the military, the man on the front lines is the one in the most danger if conflict or hostilities break out. And of course, we're the ones that want peace the most.
Oh, nobody really likes war, but we got to do what we got to. It's our jobs.
You have to be realistic that there's a thought of war and that things aren't going to go exactly as planned. But I think people will operate the way they train.
They want to prove themselves that those things that they've learned, the skills that they practice on a day-to-day basis are not just games, that they are as good as they think they are.
But all these spaces that we see here are capable of holding patients with beds in them. So we have about a 60-bed capability.
The hospital aboard the Saratoga is ready for everything, including combat. It is unlike civilian medicine, where doctors are trained to treat the most critical patients first. At sea, the priority is the ship and getting the men back to work.
We're prepared for that 24 hours a day. This is all this really is just one tremendous industrial plant. And if it wasn't for the constant supervision for safety and people being safety conscious, we'd have a lot more business. But the young people are really good. The safety department is really good. It works hand in hand. It's just one big tremendous teamwork.
The hospital can house up to 60 patients and has a staff of 40. They said a big part of their work is preventive medicine and the treatment of fractures, infections, and colds. There's an intensive care unit and a state-of-the-art emergency room. The staff is also responsible for treating other injured and sick sailors from the battle group.
It's kind of like a hotel. You know, it's a hospital hotel. People come and go quite frequently sometimes. But that's part of our job, and that's why we have the larger medical staff.
And, of course, there's Fred.
Fred used to be a sailor on the Coral Sea, and when she was decommissioned, some of our corpsmen went up there to get a lot of their medical supplies that they weren't going to be using anymore. And Fred just said, "Hey, I want to come along for the ride."
Fred's really got a lot of Christmas spirit.
Oh yes.
Merry Christmas, Jacksonville.
Yes.
Merry Christmas for the half-mast decks on the USS Saratoga.
This is Shop 4 AIMD from the USS Saratoga. And we all want to say,
Merry Christmas!
This is the world's foremost, finest, famous ground support equipment. I am Fort Division, Department AIMD. Now, jingle bells. 1, 2, 3.
Jingle bells, jingle all the way. Oh, what fun it is to ride in a one-horse open sleigh. Hey!
We have many more messages from home from our men overseas, and we'll be showing them to you throughout our program. When we come back, we'll walk you through a chow line, meet the Marines, and show you hospitality Sarah style. Whoa, whoa. When the carrier is at sea, the men are at work. I went there to work too, and it is no secret that I like what I do. But this assignment was nothing short of a blast. I had the time of my life, thanks in no small part to the finest hospitality on the high seas.
Tony and Speed, I'm sorry.
You're Tony and you're Torch. News traveled fast that Channel 4 was on board, and the crew made every effort to make us feel welcome.
We have no
I'll say the first name, because I can pronounce the first name. Deborah.
Gianolis.
There you
I'm
go.
Italian.
Terrific.
I have no excuse. I got no excuse. Anyway, we brought this nice lady up here, and it just goes to show you that I finally found, you know, after Antalya, I finally found a woman I can talk to.
After the radio show, 2 of the ship's top officers asked me to join their evening talk show.
We've got a number of things tonight we're going to cover, and some of them we're going to ask Deborah some hard questions. But first of all, we'd like to once again welcome you.
Since I'm fairly familiar with TV, I also got to give a flight briefing one afternoon, complete with a borrowed flight jacket. I'm Deborah Gianolis. This is not Eyewitness News, and this is your flight plan for Event 7. For my efforts, a football from Civic, Carrier Intelligence Command.
We really thank you for your help and support.
Thanks a lot. And when you get back to Mayport, we'll throw a few passes, huh? Hats, T-shirts, and a coveted, no doubt soon-to-be a collector's item, Desert Shield Toto Station sweatshirt, this ain't Kansas, came my way. Man after man told me seeing Channel 4 on the ship, so far away in the Mediterranean, reminded them of home.
This weapon doesn't kick, so you don't have to close your eyes or squint. Put the barrel in the water. Barrel in the water.
My experience, on the other hand, reminded me how far away from home I really was. Everything was so new, and much of it downright thrilling. Imagine my reaction when the ship's gunner invited me to shoot with his men. Before I tried my hand with the M50 semi-automatic and the M16 machine gun, my previous experience with firearms was my little brother's BB gun. These are signs you just don't expect to see on a Navy ship. But the Marines aboard the USS Saratoga work to support the sailors. They wouldn't say exactly how many Marines are on board, but they did say they have enough to get the job done.
Do y'all fill out numbers here?
Not really.
Not really, sir. No.
Really.
We just don't let that bother us, man.
There's about 100 sailors for every one Marine or so. That's about even odds.
I can't get that.
No.
And every ship needs a few good men.
That's right. It's too bad more ships don't have them. Not for 2 years. CV is an interesting life, though. With the Navy, the ship has been outstanding towards us. They've understand that Marines have different requirements, different training requirements. We do things a little differently, and Saratoga is it's been over backward to understand, and it'll be real helpful for us.
I was given a tour of the Marines' living quarters.
Standard living arrangements. We get 6 Marines basically next to each other down here, and they kind of do what they can to make everything as homely. And we've got a
Christmas tree up in the corner.
Christmas tree. Got their one of the Marines' mothers in their shop.
Look at this.
20 or 30 of these camouflage stockings to the various Marines in the area out of Las Vegas. That was real welcome.
And there were other signs of the holiday.
We've been getting stockings and ornaments and candy and cookies and everything from people all over the place, and it's been outstanding. It kind of almost feels like you're back home. Almost.
And that tough, serious perception of the Marines, how accurate is it?
We have a good time, and these Marines are definitely not humorous. Trust me.
The Marines wanted to send a message back to you.
On behalf of the Marine Detachment Board of USS Saratoga, we'd like to wish family and friends from Jacksonville, Florida, a Merry Christmas and Happy New Year.
Merry Christmas, Jacksonville!
Whether you're a Marine or a sailor on the Saratoga, you're in the same boat when it comes to chow. Are you guys at the end of the line?
Yes, ma'am.
How long is it going to take you to get chow?
Guess about 35, 40 more minutes.
Is that what you usually wait?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
3 meals a day?
Yes, ma'am. Sure.
Boy, that gets old, doesn't it?
Oh, yes, ma'am, it does.
Can't you try to get at the front of the line next time?
We can try, but...
You're looking at a line of hundreds of hungry men waiting for their meal. This scene is repeated 3 times a day, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. The line stopped at the top of the stairs and picked up downstairs. Picking it up again, here it is. Hi, what point am I in the chow line now? How many more minutes? About 10 more minutes? How long you already been in?
About 5.
That's not too bad. That's not too bad. I started to make progress along the challenging chow line. They don't run out. Hi, how you doing? I'm walking around and I'm talking to the chow line there. This isn't a long line?
No. Usually it goes all the way back to Main Bay, too.
Wow. Yeah. So this is a pretty decent chow line, huh?
I've waited 40 minutes in chow line before.
When's it worse? Breakfast, lunch, or dinner? It doesn't matter.
It really doesn't matter. Not at all. It's not too bad, though.
Finally, I made it to the end to see what the Sarah was serving. Rice, chicken, is it meat stew?
This is beef sukiyaki.
Uh-huh.
That's what makes Saratoga so good, because we're all a big team on here. We don't admit it sometimes, but we are. And we've done things that nobody's ever done since I've been on here for 5 years, and I've never seen a crew get so close together and get the job done.
Morale has never been higher.
In your department, anyway, or do you think it's ship-wide?
I think it's ship-wide.
We get along better than most businesses and seem to have more fun. I think it's because there's more of a feeling of fraternity.
If we detect low morale, we threaten to break their legs. I'm just kidding. I am kidding.
Hi, we are some of the shipmates from USS Saratoga from the A&E division. We all would like to wish everyone back home in Jacksonville a Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. We wish we all could be home there with you, but unfortunately, we're not.
We wish you a Merry Christmas. We wish you a Merry Christmas. We wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
Hey, Carmelina, I miss you. Can't wait to get home. Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
I'd like to say hello to my family in Jacksonville Beach, and I hope you have a Merry Christmas, and maybe we'll be home soon.
Sorry I didn't call you, so it's kind of hard to get a hold of you in port. I only had 1 day off, so I'll try calling you next port.
Merry Christmas.
And we're the famous diamond cutters on board USS Saratoga here at the hub of maintenance control. And we all like to say Merry Christmas
and Happy New Year.
Hello, we're the Saratoga Medical Department, and
we wish you a Merry Christmas.
Happy New Year.
When we come back, how you are helping morale in the Med.
How is it, Deb?
One of the highlights of the week for men at sea is mail call. Thanks to all of you, that comes twice a week, and it really lifts their spirits. During my 5 days on the Saratoga last week, the men told me time and time again how much they appreciate your kindness. I was especially touched by the budding relationship between a young lieutenant commander and his Ponte Vedra pen pal.
It's been overwhelming. It really has, and I hope everybody who has taken the time to write any Saratoga sailor or specific Saratoga sailors understand that we're doing our best to write you all back. And, I've got a few of my own here that I return. My pen pals they mean a lot. They really do. Faithful pen pals.
You got one. Now let's. Who's this? Who are all these letters from?
I hope Jane Gilbert in Ponte Vedra Beach. Never got a chance to meet you yet. It won't always be that way. I very much intend on meeting you when I get back. But I love your letters. They're tremendous. They really mean a lot. We've gone from Dear Popeye, when she first wrote me, and closing sincerely to finally with love. We've gotten to be very close friends, and I hope that I mean as much to her as she means to me.
And this is someone was just a letter out of the blue, right?
She wrote any Saratoga sailor in response to an ad in the local papers back in Jacksonville. And I stumbled on her letter. I wandered on her letter how, I never know. But I wrote saying, thank you for writing any Saratoga sailor. Thank you for your support. She wrote back, I wrote back, and now we're up to about maybe at least one letter a week.
How about that?
But Jane Gilbert and her husband Paul in Ponte Vedra Beach, I want you to know, at least for one Saratoga sailor, you really made my cruise worthwhile.
That's the most important thing, is help them back home. Sure. Letters, cookies, anything like that. Just the contact, keep the contact going.
You can mail off a letter to your wife, your girlfriend, or your mother, whoever, but you can't expect a return from that letter for a month because it's 2 weeks to get there, then they have to reply, and then it's 2 weeks to get back here, and it's, in the meantime, you're just sitting there going, where's my letter?
The mail support we get really helps out a lot. Working on the mess sticks like I do, I see a lot of the mail, and I get bags upon bags of the mail for any sailor. And when I put it out on the mess sticks, it disappears. It just goes.
And I think some of the support from back home also enhances the spirit of a person that's out here doing what he perceives as being in defense of that homeland. And when he feels that that homeland is appreciative of his efforts, then I think that he does a better job at it.
You know, the letters and mail been pouring in, the Christmas cards, the packages, brownies, chocolate chip cookies, you know, everything. It all adds up to the fact that the crew feels like they're doing a job that their country wants them to do, and they're therefore enthusiastic about it.
By the way, don't send any leftover Christmas cookies. They were swimming in them when I was there. I'll be right back with some final thoughts on our men and their mission.
Hi, my name is Seaman Lane, and we're wishing you a Merry Christmas from the Saratoga Launch.
Merry Christmas! Merry Christmas! Merry Christmas, VFA 83!
Hi, from the engineers at USS Saratoga, to all the people in Jacksonville and the United States, Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Happy New Year, and Happy Holidays. Hi, Sharon. Hi, Sharon.
The hardest part about leaving the Saratoga was not being able to take the men back home with me. They have been constantly in my thoughts. Sometimes my memories make me laugh out loud. Sometimes they make me cry, not out of sadness, but of pride. I have visited Jacksonville Navy bases hundreds of times over the past 14 years, but I had never before visited our men at sea. When I talked with them about the long separations from family, about maintaining morale over so many months, about the threat of war, they kept getting back to, this is what we do. We go to sea, we train, we choose to be here, and we are ready for whatever we are called to do. I thank the crew of the USS Saratoga for this glimpse into the U.S. Navy. I believe the men I met are as ready for war as any human beings can ever be. I also believe their desire for peace is deeper than we can know. They are willing to go in harm's way so we don't have to. Impressed? That's an understatement. I just spent a week with some of the best people I have ever known. I can't wait to see them again, to welcome them home to the city they call the best darn Navy town in America. Thank you for letting me tell this story. I'm Deborah Gianolis.